So first, does laughing increase your chances of pregnancy? Obviously, we know a lot of funny people who have never gotten pregnant, and a lot of people who are really boring and dull, and yet they're surrounded by kids. No, I'm kidding. I don't know any of those. But where some of this came from was actually, for those of you who watch Jimmy Fallon, the comedian Retta, who you know from Parks and Rec and also from Good Girls. She was talking the other day about the strangest stand-up gigs that she has ever done. And one of those gigs, she actually had to do a stand-up routine for a friend who'd just undergone an insemination, because the husband had come and said, I've been reading about this, and this improves pregnancy rates, and if you laugh, you're more likely to get pregnant. And the irony is, for the stand-up routine, the person actually did get pregnant afterwards. So, if I debunk it, maybe there is a little bit of validity to this. But anyway, so where it came from, there was a study in Israel. This was about maybe a decade ago, and it tried to prove that laughter is the best medicine for everything, and go full Patch Adams style. And they took women who had had an embryo transfer, and they randomized them to whether they got a stand-up routine. They did the stand-up routine for them. They did, for the people who were chosen to be the control group, they just had a standard recovery after their embryo transfer. And the people who were put in the comedy section got a 15-minute stand-up routine from Bozo the Clown or whoever it was. And they showed that actually there was a 50% higher pregnancy rate in the group that got pregnant. And it kind of said laughter is the best medicine. Now, there are a couple things for that. First, they had a really small sample size. And so there were only a few people. So there's a much greater chance that it could be by chance that they got pregnant just by laughing really hard after an embryo transfer. The other thing that I think is relevant to that is, why do people get pregnant in the first place? And so here's the thing. If, again, so much of fertility comes down to, does a guy have sperm? Does a woman have eggs? Can they meet in the tubes and have a place to go in the uterus? The DNA of the egg, the DNA of the sperm have already been well determined, and that's the overwhelming thing that drives them. And laughter, if insemination has already occurred, the DNA has already been determined, whether the sperm and egg have found each other have ever determined, there is not any convincing data that if you laugh really hard, you are more likely to be pregnant. Now, there's certainly things that relate to humor that would affect pregnancy. If your husband comes in with those tighty whities and you just start laughing at him, there's no chance that you are getting pregnant because you're having nothing to do with him that day. I would say that would be on the list for things. I think that, there are things where people talk about stress and infertility having a negative effect on things. But the reality is, let's face it, we were chased around by saber-toothed tigers for thousands of years, and the species still exists. So that despite the most stressful of circumstances, people can still get pregnant. And actually, there's good data out of World War II and areas with genocide and ethnic cleansing and horrible things that stress actually has far less of a negative effect on fertility than we once thought. In fact, there was one good study that actually showed women who were the most stressed were the most likely to get pregnant because they were the ones who actually cared about the outcome and followed through and did a lot for it. So there's a lot to recognize and see that, even though we want everyone to laugh and have fun, at the same time, don't beat yourself up if you're, feeling stressed or it's not as funny, because fertility isn't a laughing matter at many times, that things can still absolutely and definitely happen, and we are hopeful and optimistic for everyone. Brittany, throw something in there. I'm just doing a monologue here. This is not supposed to be.
Well, I mean, you think about stress, and I know we are into relaxation things, though. Go if you feel like you need to go get a pedicure, if you feel like you need to relax. Those are all good things to do. I mean, being low on stress is good, but it's not going to hurt the pregnancy. And I think that that's one thing that people generally worry about. I'm too stressed. I can't go to work today. You can still go to work, even if it's the most stressful job. You can still go to work.
I think one of the things I see, that, to go on a tangent on what Brittany is saying, people feel stressed about not getting pregnant, and then they'll read it, oh, stress causes infertility. Okay. And therefore, I'm not only stressed, but I'm stressed about the fact I'm stressed. And then it sort of becomes this vicious cycle. And don't blame yourself. Don't beat yourself up. As long as you sort of show up with your doc, take your medications, that is the overwhelming and driving thing for fertility.